Budget, Sierra Leone. It's a civic organization that enhances citizens' understanding of the budget and matters of public spending using tech tools to simplify the budget to raise the standard of transparency and accountability in government. It has been launched and it has activated a Pan-African tracking system for all COVID funds received and donated to these countries. On its shared long-term vision is that every community in the continent has skilled, sensitized, and largely self-organizing citizens engaged in budget tracking, and in turn they will present feedback and results to the government and development partners in a constructive manner. So this morning, to talk about their aims and objectives, we have been joined by Nyanulua Bolarinwa. I hope I got that correct as well. The Senior Programs Officer, Budget Foundation. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah.
Excuse me if I got your name wrongly.
Yes, you tried.
I tried. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and welcome.
You call it properly, so we'll get it.
Yeah, so I would say Yanulua.
Yanulua, for
yes,
short.
Yes, Yanulua Bolarinwa.
Okay.
So that's the way
So we'll just call you Bola.
We call you Bola.
Call you Bola.
Bola, accept that for today,
no
please.
problem.
Bola, welcome.
We also have lawyer Rashid Dumbuya. Very easy to call.
Yeah,
we know. Where he is the director or executive director for Legal Link, and he's here to talk on the launching of the CSO, the Trial Monitoring Group for effective monitoring of the Sexual Offences Model Court and the Anti-Corruption Court in Sierra Leone. Good morning. It's great to have you on the show, lawyer.
Thanks for having me. I'm grateful.
Okay. So we're going to first of all start off with you, Bola. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
First of all, take us through on this organization, Budget Sierra Leone.
Okay, so Budget Sierra Leone started less than a year ago, and our focus in Sierra Leone is to bring the budget down to people, right? Because we know that a lot of people don't understand what the content of the national budget are. They don't understand what the government intends to spend on a particular project, what's going to be in their fiscal year, right? Because a lot of people just go about their daily activities. They don't know how these decisions by the government affect them and affect their livelihoods and what they do on their day-to-day basis, right? So we saw this. It's a model that has run in 4 countries. We run in Nigeria, we run in Liberia, Sierra Leone, then Ghana, right? And what we see in all these countries are opportunities for educating people and giving them the right tools to be able to ask questions. Because we understand that you can't engage if you don't have knowledge of what you want to ask questions about. And that's why we started here, and we see this opportunity to be able to awaken the Sierra Leone citizens and let them understand that you have a right to understand what is in the budget, you have a right to ask questions, and you have a right to also understand what the government is planning to use the country's resources for. So those are the things we plan to achieve as an organization.
How long has Budget been in existence?
Yeah, Budget has been existing for 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, we're celebrating 10 years this year.
In Sierra Leone?
Yes.
No.
No, in all over.
Okay.
Like in Nigeria, basically, so in Sierra Leone started just less than a year ago. But in existence for the whole organization, 10 years.
So using Nigeria as a case study, how long has it been operational in Nigeria?
10 years.
10 years in Nigeria. Using Nigeria as a case study for an economy and a nation as large as Nigeria, where the figures are nowhere compared to what we deal with here in Sierra Leone, but as well the issues surrounding corruption, misappropriations of funds, the lack of engagement of citizens when it comes to budget issues. What lessons can you say have been learnt from the Nigerian experience that we can utilize here in Sierra Leone?
All right, so the lessons we've learned so far are basically around policy formulations, understanding of what the budget entails by doing town hall meetings, making sure people have the right information to ask questions. And number 3 is there's a social awakening, right? Normally there's citizens apathy, but you know, when people understand the stakes, right, that are at hand as to if these funds are mismanaged, how it's going to affect their livelihood, how it's going to affect the currency, how it's going to affect the foreign direct investment, how it's going to affect even as to what they eat themselves, right? So they are awakened and they understand that, okay, with this information that we have, right, because what we do is it's a very bulky information, right? And a lot of people don't even have the luxury of time to sit down and start flipping pages by pages. But what we do is we put all of that information together and we design infographics out of it, right? So which means we show you the current expenditure, we show you the recurrent expenditure, we show you the capital expenditure, we show you the debt, we show you the debt servicing, we show you everything that has to deal with the budget. And we now have a system where we even break down as to what's happening in your constituency, right? As we have provinces in Sierra Leone, we have constituencies, we have states, where you understand what's the budget of your state, what's going in and out of your local government, right? Because we have the local government, we have the state government, we have the federal government, right? Back in Nigeria. And I know we have the provinces here as well. So what we do is we streamline those information to the people there so that they are very much aware of what is going on.
What tool do you use?
So we use, when you say tools, we use tech tools, right? Social media tools, we use design tools, we use the media as well, and we also use, we have our own website where people can always go in, get information from, and be able to download this information and use them for engagement, right? So those are the tools that we use.
At what level does this process of engagement and engagement with the people to understand the budget, at what level does it become applicable? Is it before the budget is passed or endorsed by Parliament, or is it after this has gone through parliamentary approval?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think at all levels, really, because you know, there's a level of there's what we call budget performance, right? To know how far that budget has done for that fiscal year, right? That always comes after the whole budget has been passed and after the whole budget cycle has ended, right? That's leading us into another budget cycle, right? So what we do is we engage based on, oh, this fiscal year, this is what has been spent so far, this is what the government has been able to make, and this is how they expended all these funds, right? So we engage on all these levels because we understand that, you know, learning from the mistakes of the last fiscal year can also help to now formulate policies that will make sure that the next fiscal year is more beneficiary to the people, right? More inclusive, more beneficiary, and also understands the stakes that we have if we make mistakes. So these are the things that we do because we also understand that, you know, it's a continuous cycle, right? But we also want people to understand that even if it's a continuous cycle, they can contribute to this process. They can ask questions, right? And also, as an organization, we now postulate policies as to say, if you do it this way, and that's why we have citizens budget, right? We say, if you do it this way, we feel this is what this is the result we will get, right? Some governments are always very receptive. They have a dialogue. Okay, we see what you're saying, and we think we should also try it, right? And we do all of that, and we make sure that.
How important is this whole process going to be in a situation like Sierra Leone, where we know, for example, the Ministry of Health gets 2 million leones, and we know it's going towards health and health-related issues. But the ministry does not come out to the people to say, for this year, there's a budget here. These are our targets. This is what we are going to perform. Hence, the people are able to judge. You said this year, 2020, you're going to build 20 more health facilities. You're going to probably employ X. You understand? In an absence of that, how do you now track the efficiency of that budget?
All right, so as that as it sounds, what we do in that aspect is that, you know, it's called understanding what the money was used for, right? Let them tell us, right? Okay, this money, did it even come in the first place, right? Which means was budgeted and was it paid for,
Was it allocated?
right? Because you can have a budget and you also need to have the legal tender to back that budget, right? So was it paid for? If it was paid for, right, then we now send you a FOI request to tell us what were these monies used for, right? Once we get a response to our FOI request, right, we now have raised the awareness of the public, right? We need you to ask questions. We need you to write letters, because what we tell people all the time is that this is education. This is civic education, right? We want you to be very active, because at the end of the day, we don't want it to be like an organization is being singled out, right? We want it to be like a community is asking questions. And when the people in government and offices, when they realize that the community have an understanding and have a particular knowledge of what they're doing, they will be more conscious.
So it's a two-way approach.
Yeah.
You take the government budgets to the people, and you take the people's budgets to the government.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So how do we create the people's budget? We call it citizens budget, right? So we just have town hall meetings, right? We look at what projects are in this environment that we feel should be a priority to the government, right? And also, what is the cost of governance? How can we reduce the cost of governance? Because when the cost of governance is reduced, you have more resources to the people, right? So those are the things we put into perspective to create balance.
How much of that have been utilized or implemented by the government in terms of the citizens' budget and ways of reducing cost of governance?
Yeah, so
I ask this because the cost of governance is it's most times for a developing nation, you question if we are actually developing or actually poor.
Yeah. So like I said, we are just starting up in Sierra Leone, and we've also partnered with BAN, which is the Budget Advocacy Network, because we understand that they've been here for some time, and it's a very strong community, and it's a very strong group as well. So what we're looking at is how we can leverage on what the work they've done, right, and also stand on their shoulders, right, because we also understand that coming into a new country, coming into a new system, we need to be patient, and we need to also understand the how receptive they will be, right? So as to how much have we done, we've done a lot, right? But very soon you start seeing the result of what we've done. And also part of what we're doing is the project we launched yesterday, which is called the CITAP, right? Which is the COVID Transparency and Accountability Project in Africa.
We'll be coming to talk about that shortly more, because it's very important as well. Let's move to Lawyer Rashid quickly, and let's talk a little bit about the judiciary and access to justice in Sierra Leone as well. I see you're also looking for more involvement or engagement within the judiciary sector, and that has to do with issues of sexual and gender-based violence and the fight against corruption. But generally, what's the rationale of what you're calling for within the sector?
Yes, thank you very much, AYB, for having me. I'm grateful, as always. Let me start by acknowledging the good efforts of the Chief Justice, because, and of course, by extension, the government of Sierra Leone, for the willingness to establish these two important courts, specialized courts in our judicial system. You will recall that the call to have a special court on corruption has started a long time ago, and it is only now in 2020 that the government and the Chief Justice adhered to that call, and now we have a special court on corruption. So before now, the issue of corruption was being dealt with in the conventional court system, and there were so many obstacles in that direction. And now we have a specialized court within the High Court, a whole division that specializes on such matters. And then on the other hand, also there was this call to also have a special court to deal with sexual offenses because of the geometric progression rate we realized in the occurrence and happenings around SGBVs in the country. So that call also was long overdue, but thankfully we have the courts now. So we as civil society, we are looking at this issue from a very sustainable perspective. So we believe if we don't monitor such mechanisms, with time they will slip and forget about their mandates and their essence, and then gradually they lose their focus, and by the time we know it, it's as if we don't even have special courts that deal with issues anymore. So I'm sure the rationale to have these specialized courts, among other things, is to also expedite the trials, all right, to make sure at least justice is not delayed. Because that was the biggest problem when we were having.
In your own assessment,
yes,
since these two courts were formed, were established, has there been that, access to justice is one, people understanding that, if we have case now, especially for sexual and gender-based violence, where people are afraid that the judiciary will take the whole year investigating the matter or going through the courts. Has there been any progress with people believing in the system and expedition of trials as well, like you said?
Yeah, so that is the essence of why we have launched this CSO court monitoring group. So we all don't know, all right? I'm sure the judiciary cannot even tell us at the moment. So what we have decided is to come together and form this CSO court monitoring group to have this independent assessment to see whether in fact much has been gained so far since the establishment, and we are really getting the results for which these courts have been established. So the court monitoring group, among many other things, will bring out statistics on progress in terms of the cases being handled, but also importantly, it will also show the gaps, the weaknesses, the shortcomings, and then profile recommendations for reform.
What are some of the gaps and weaknesses identified?
Yeah, well, we have not started yet. It has just been launched, yes. So we have the judiciary, we are engaged currently with the judiciary to have perhaps like a TOR in terms of reference. The Chief Justice has called upon us, and we are working on that. And then we have also engaged the ACC, and they are also very proactive and positive about this, and they have even pledged to make some commitment to making sure this whole exercise becomes a reality. So we aim to start on the 1st of April. So in March, we are doing the training, we are doing the recruitment of the court monitors, we are having the TORs, the MOUs, and then also the working guideline.
But I presume that there have been some background research and work already done.
I agree with you.
So with the creation of these two very critical and important courts, have they been capacitated to be able to enable them carry out the function? It's one thing to have the court, there's another thing to have the capacity to be able to function. Capacity in the sense that if you have only 10 judges in Sierra Leone and each of this judge has a particular day to sit in either of these courts, we're still coming back to the same situation of just having none of these courts operational. So have there been an improvement in capacity in that area?
Yeah, so our preliminary findings have shown a mixed baggage. So we must admit that efforts have been made to rebrand and get some infrastructural upgrade in terms of putting these courts in a very high pedestal. So there's a special building that has been designed, a room for these courts, well named, and you can identify when you come in right at the judiciary there at Stephen Street. Some few judges have also been assigned specifically to look at these courts, and of course, when you go to the courts that host the sexual offences proceedings, you can see also some cameras, you see also some television, you see also a stage designed to protect minor witnesses from being seen by the audience. So some efforts have been made, but what we are going to look at now is to see whether the wheels of justice is turning. So in other words, what are the fair trial rights being upheld for the accused person? So in such trial, we're going to look at not only procedural issues, but we're going to look at how much the court is according and respecting the rights of the accused person, fair trial rights issues, also the rights of the complainant, looking at the issue of bail, looking at the issue of speedy trials. So we are looking at also who is delaying the trial. For example, we are the judges present on that day, all right? Or was it the prosecutor at ACC that was not present? Or was it witnesses that did not come? So we will be able to point clearly who is delaying the trial. The report will show. And also the report will show who is really helping to speed up the trial, and perhaps also the fair trial right issues, whether in fact they were really upheld. So when people come out and say things contrary, we will be there to say, oh no, we were there. This is the actual thing that happened. We have the report. So our report will be accessed by the public. It will be accessed also by parties maybe before the court, and even the judiciary. So that is what we are trying to profile, an independent opinion that will help to incentivize progress in the judiciary. So we made a commitment to the Chief Justice. He was very concerned about where we are coming from, and we made it very clear that this is not a political, gamesmanship show. It's about helping to strengthen the judiciary, because such information is very, very key for the Chief Justice to also have before him, to know exactly what his men and women are doing out there, whether in fact they are taking their work seriously as well.
Would this sort of inform the strategy being implemented or utilized by the ACC?
Yes.
A lot of cases before the ACC, most times we see out-of-court settlement. And they bring forward various reasons why they choose out-of-court settlements as opposed to actually going through a full legal proceeding.
Yes.
Do you think this is going to have an impact in that strategy or decision?
In a way, because I'm sure SEC will now be looking forward to bringing some cases to court at the very least, so that at least because at the end of the day, we'll be producing reports. Every 3 months, we'll be producing thematic quarterly newsletter reports on the trials, okay, from a civil society perspective, all right, of our monitoring. So I'm not sure they will be okay to have that report published, and we see a minimal number of cases come to court, all right, in the report. I'm sure this will incentivize them to say, oh, I think settlement should not be the rule, but the exception, and let's be taking cases to court. So that at the very least, that report also captures the efforts we are doing in the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone. So I agree with you.
On sexual and gender-based violence, organizations like Rainbow Initiative and lawyers and others are already doing, even CAL, they even doing monitoring sort of within the judiciary. They provide data, whether it's monthly, January of cases committed to the courts and cases that are being tried and judgments passed. But what difference will the work you'll be doing? Yes. What will be the difference with the information you'll be providing to the public?
Yes, awesome. A nice question. Because our research reveals that no entity has been monitoring cases in these new courts. Remember, they are new courts, and they are in the high courts.
They just released their data recently.
Yes, let me put it in context. Let me just finish. So these new courts, a design mechanism, monitoring mechanism, apparently doesn't exist. So it's different from what you might be saying. To say we are sending one to people to look at what's happening per cases that are interested by them. It's different. We are going to bring a whole CSO initiative at the High Court. Many of these CSOs have been doing a lot of work, like Carl, on the magistrate courts, and which is very laudable. So we'll be also buying their experiences. But we are dealing with just these 2 courts, all right? And they are sitting in the High Court. So we are looking at a comprehensive reporting mechanism. So it's an everyday reporting. So there will be a daily update on all the cases before the judges. And then we have also a quarterly newsletter report. And then ultimately we have an annual report. So it will be more comprehensive and more targeting. So it's not about a one-off, perhaps interested cases, but we are looking at all the cases before them. And then we make recommendations which will be tabled before the Chief Justice and the ACC.
Are you optimistic that they would take into consideration those recommendations? Because we're very good at giving recommendations, but we seem to be averse to implementing or onboarding those recommendations.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what we are doing at the moment is to have a buy-in from the Chief Justice and the ACC. So that's what we are doing now. We had our first meeting with the Chief Justice, and he seems to be very happy with this initiative. He's delegated the task to some members of the judiciary to work with us to have guiding principles, TOR, and then we are currently, ACC also, we've had a meeting with them, and they've pledged their commitment. So that is key. So eventually, they now know where we are coming from. So the report will be sent to them, and it's for them to now look at the recommendations and up their game. So that trust is currently being harnessed, and we hope that eventually when the reports are launched, whether they are good or they are bad or they are ugly, they should be taken in good faith and see how they could work on the excesses, enjoy the praises that are there, and then move on for the good of Senegal.
Do you foresee this putting, especially the judges, on their toes?
Yes,
because in many cases, we question our judges, and we see cases being prolonged for adjournment and adjournment and adjournment, and in many, allegations of I could go on with a long list of what is wrong with those sector people. So do you think this is going to put them on their toes and hopefully minimize the number of those incidents that we always hear about?
It's a beautiful question, because we had also that informal, interrogation in some quarters. But then I'll admit that it's a two-edged sword. All right, so it will also create a platform for judges who are doing it right to be showcased and perhaps commended and rewarded. So that statistic will fall before the Chief Justice and even the President, because the President has powers to give awards annually. So it's important we have these awards given on an empirical platform, empirical studies, statistics, because these days people just give awards all over the place. You cannot even justify on the basis. So that will be a justification. So look at the statistics.
I asked that because it seems like there is no one holds the judges accountable. It's like they're the Lord of the Ring, and they act in their own space and in their own world. No one holds them accountable. How would this hold them accountable and also sort of push for penalties against defaulting judges, those who've gone rogue?
Yeah. I think you are really hitting the nail on the head, because part of our mandate, it's also to showcase and hold the judiciary to account. I agree with you, because the report will show the judges who have been complying and those who have not been complying. And it's up to the Chief Justice, who is the head of the judiciary, to take action. So if, for example, the report shows that this judge has not been coming for the trials, and yet the accused people are behind bars, all right, or the free and trial rights of the accused person have not been respected, due process have been not followed, so the report will show. So on the one hand, it will be a single praising report for those who are doing it right, but also it will be also a red card for those who are not doing it right. And it's for the judge, the Chief Justice, to now, use the reports to perhaps come down hard on those judges so that they do the right thing. So I agree with you. It's an accountability mechanism as well.
Okay, Rashid, continue to stay to us. We'll be coming back to you. Let's move to Bola quickly. You started on Ebola funds, accountability around it. We've all read the recent audit reports on preliminary reports, possibly on Sierra Leone's COVID-19 implementation. So generally, what are you doing in Sierra Leone with regards to COVID-19? People understanding what are the funds that came in from World Bank and other international partners, and how they've been implemented. What's the work you're doing around it?
All right, thank you very much. So first of all, I must appreciate the government for putting out the links to the unaudited statement, which also puts out the funding the government has received so far and what they've used those funding for. Right, we must first of all commend the government for doing that. But furthermore, what we're trying to do now is we're trying to understand the hidden pains of people. Right, we've been to Kenema, we're going to Bo tomorrow, and what we're doing in all of these provinces is to get human angle stories, right? Because we understand that a lot of livelihoods were affected by the global pandemic, right? As it is in Nigeria, so it is in Sierra Leone, so it is in Ghana. But we also understand that there are some support the government always promised to give, or the government has already given, right? We just want to know how effective were this support, right? That's one. Number two is all these fundings that were received, was the value of money received as to what was spent on, right? Because there's a part where you spend the money, and there's another part where there's an independent body checking if what the money was spent for, there's actually the value of the money.
Are you looking at the response, or you're looking at you know, the livelihood support being given because of COVID-19, or you concentrating on, because you have the DCOVAX as well, the districts coronavirus committees, and they have their own budget, they have their own programs. Are you looking at how they spend their own monies, or you're looking at programs like what NACSA did, or what Ministry of Tourism did to support the tourism sector?
Yeah, so we want to base our work on a global scale, which is looking at the whole country as a whole, and looking at the funds that came into the country, right? Maybe not specifically look at how they are spending their own money or on the projects they're doing, but specifically looking at how the government spend money on its own project, right? Maybe through the tourism sector, or through the health sector. We want to see, okay, where the health centers built, right? Where the support to the people through, we call it palliatives, were they given out to people? Were the people that were supposed to receive palliatives, were they the ones that received the palliatives, right? Or did it end up in the covers of just some very few people, right? And you know, the very funny thing about it is, we were here when the Ebola incident happened as well. We did some work around the Ebola funds and all of that, and it was just a one-time thing, but we just said, okay, this is another pandemic, right? And a lot of funds have been pumped into several African countries, and Sierra Leone is one of our focus countries. Let's go into the provinces, right? Let's see for ourselves this project. Were they done? Is it just on paper?
Are there specific projects you're looking at, or it's general?
Yes, so it's general, but we are basing on a particular threshold, which when we look at this particular threshold and say, okay, this particular project of this amount, right, which the team is going to determine, let's see how effective is this particular amount that was spent on this project, how effective is it on the livelihoods of the people, right, in this particular province. And that's what we're doing. Yes, the government has put out the figures. We're also going to analyze these figures. We put them in infographics. You know, a lot of Sierra Leoneans don't even know how much that the government received.
So the information you'll be gathering, is it more of speaking to the people and listening from them, understanding whether you know, money sent to Kenema, for example, you know, for social protection or for disabled, were given to the direct beneficiaries?
Yes, we will do that. And how are we doing that? We call it human angle stories. So we're taking cameraman there, right? We're trying to get their stories documented, right? Because, you know, we can just have people talk, right? But, you know, documentation and publicizing this documentation raises a level of awareness, right? So once the government sees something like that, right, it's either they cooperate or they flinch, right? But we are hoping that there's cooperation, so as to understand, okay, this support is not enough, right? Or this is where the praises are, because, you know, everything the government does is not bad, right? We also appreciate the government when they've done very well, right, in a particular place, but, you know, where there are also gaps that we feel that it needs to be filled, right? So that's the essence of these stories, right? To put it out there, to give people hope, right? And to also see how the government can plan. Nobody expected another global pandemic after Ebola. Right? Ebola was devastating, especially for Africa, right? But I think we've been lucky with COVID-19, in as much as, you know, the world experts, the world analysts have said, no, Africa is going to be devastated by the COVID pandemic. I think Africa still has the lowest captured number of deaths globally, right? So, yes, how do we prepare for another pandemic?
So, bringing into context the fact that your organization is operational in at least 3 or 4 other African countries. how would you rate the transparency of our government, especially when it comes to access to information? How cooperative are they?
Well, I think I would just, that's a very subjective question, right? And I would just put it on a 50-50 basis, right? Because at the end of the day, the government of Sierra Leone has tried by putting out the funding they've received for COVID, and also by putting out the unaudited statement. So I'll give them a very pass mark for that. But I think where we have challenges is when we request for some information, right? It takes time before you get it. And sometimes it's very time bound because of the information you want to pass out. So I think at this point I would just call on the government to encourage them as to see civil society organizations as partners, right? Not as antagonists who just want to poke hands into what they're doing, but as people who want to understand what they're doing, and also to give a voice of appreciation, to give a voice of recommendation, and also to give a voice of support to the work they are also doing in their own quarters, right? But believe you me, right, we will see some things we want you to improve on, right? And that's what we call constructive criticisms, right? So that's where our work lies. So we put it on a 50-50 basis.
So is your organization collaborating with the Right to Access Information Commission? We do have that commission here, and they are supposed to facilitate access to information. Are you collaborating with them, especially in areas, MDAs, where for some reason they are hoarding certain information from you?
All right, so I think it's something we would like to look into, and like to see how we can explore that partnership, and see what we can also put into the works for that to happen. So that's a very good one. And number two is we also partner with BAN, like I mentioned earlier on. We know that BAN has been here for some time, and they have this structure on ground that we can also leverage on. So we also look at that, and we're also leveraging on the FOI Act, which I believe also it helps us to get information we need from the MDAs, right? I think we're also leveraging on that.
Have they been very responsive with your request with the FOI Act?
Well, not as much as we wanted, right? Not as much as we want, but we would encourage them to actually respond more. And like I said earlier on, it's not to demonize what they're doing, but it's just to get information to analyze the work that needs to be done, and also to put out the information for people to understand and to be able to ask questions.
On Sierra Leone, what specifically could you say is the major work you've done? Like I'm a journalist, I need information. What should I go look for on your website?
So on our website, so we've done the budget for Sierra Leone. You'll see on the website, and we also did a publication, which we have. I think after the show, I can share with you the publication so you can see. And what we've done in that publication is to analyze the budget and to show you what the fiscal year entails. We show you the capital project expenditures. We show you the recurrent expenditure. We show you the debt. We show you all the project that the government is doing and how much is being spent on all of that. Yes. So
as we obviously clearly going by the name of your organization and the mandate, basically looking at the budget, which obviously is money. How much of this work and the sensitization of the public, the involvement of the public with issues surrounding national budget, how much of that can address issues of corruption?
Well, so I always say something. I say it's a continuous journey, right? And it's a journey that not just one organization can do, but it's something where we are all contributing to carry a load, right? We will continue to raise people's awareness, and we continue to sensitize people, because it starts from education, right? Because when people are agitated and they don't have the right knowledge, they don't know the right questions to ask, right? But as soon as we're able to educate people, as soon as we're able to give them the right... So, for example, that particular publication gives you in a stance how the budget is being spent. So when you have the opportunity to engage MDAs, you have the opportunity to engage the Auditor General of the Nation, the Accountant General of the Nation, or even the Budget Office, right? You know the right questions to ask, right? And so gradually, it's a gradual process. We believe gradually, maybe in the next 5 years, we have been able to touch maybe 50% of the population. I'm very optimistic that a lot of people are interested in knowing what budget does, and a lot of people are interested in also asking questions, because we know that, you know, a lot of times people just complain within themselves, right? And why do they do that? Because they just don't know the right things to ask. But with, you know, agitations aside, knowledge, right, you give to them and they'll be able to ask the right questions.
Okay.
All right. Well, hold on. Continue to stay with us. Iyanoloa Bolariwa, Senior Program Officer for Budget
Stella can call you
Foundation.
better. She can.
Let's not go there now. And lawyer Rashid Doumbouya, both of you continue to stay with us. Okay, welcome back. For those of you just tuning in, head on to our Facebook page, drop your comments, and be a part of the program. We will take some messages in a few. Yes, we've got a lot of them. But we do have with us a lawyer, Rashid Doumbouya, and he is the Executive Director for Legal Link. And basically, they actually launched a CSO trial monitoring group for effective monitoring of the Sexual Offences Model Court and the Anti-Corruption Court in Sierra Leone. Also with us here is Iyanoloa Bolariwa, Senior Program Officer for Budget Foundation. Of course, the Budget Sierra Leone, you know, chapter. I use chapter, has been in existence now for about a year, and the whole idea is to get citizens aware, involved, and engaged with the national budget. So with that, we'll take a few messages. There are quite a ton of them. Max Jallo says, if Sierra Leone will be prosperity, lies in the hands of probably prosperous, lies in the hands of Parliament, because they are not doing their jobs. Sierra Leoneans, okay, this is not related. This has to do with Parliament. It's not related to the conversation. Ronald Beresford Ignatius Georgestone says, so long as the three wings of government are not independent, where the Supreme Courts have a system by which they select judges based on merit or ethics independently, rather than by the executive wing, nothing will change. The judiciary holds the executive to account on what it can and cannot do. But in Sierra Leone, we see the opposite. I need not mention the legislator, who are supposed to be for their electorate. And Mystic Adouazak says, Rashid, the formation of the court monitoring group was a brilliant initiative, more so when we have a lot of weaknesses and delay of cases at the court. Hope your monitoring team will ensure they are proactive by exposing the lapses of the judiciary. Bernard Beresford continues again to say, we should remember that there are many different alternatives to a budget. A government can have their reasons, and that could be different from the opposite side or economic experts, which can be discussed to the public rather than just full steam ahead with the government budget. At least see the alternatives by other economists. And Ronald is also saying it's a welcome idea of budgets to help people understand what government does with their taxes, whether literate or illiterate. Mind you, breaking the jargon into our local languages will go a long way in getting Sierra Leoneans in the know. It says AYV as the fortress, it can have your economic correspondences to have an oversight on it, but generally it's talking about whether some of these things will be localized for people who can understand better. Eddie Grant is asking, is his work different from that of the Auditor General's work? That's a question for you. Yeah. Quite a ton of messages there. Quite a ton of them. African Sierra Leone Progressive. This is not very clear. Lantina Koroma there. Well, those are just a few messages. We have a ton of them. We'll start off with you, Bala, in response to some of those messages.
All right, so I'll start from the last one. Is a work different from that of the Auditor General? Yes, it is, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is more or less like from the civil society angle, right? Because we don't work for the government, and we are not interfered by the government, so we don't we don't cut corners, we don't cut the message we want to put out. We put it out as it is because we want it to achieve a purpose, and the purpose is to make sure that these resources are used right to the benefit of Sierra Leoneans, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. And also we also get the fact that if we don't put it out in a language, so I'm already moving to the next message. If we don't put it out in language, we're limiting ourselves. So in every countries that we work, we get to understand the languages that they speak, and we try to put out our publications in those languages. And what we're doing in Sierra Leone, in point in case, is that we're going to the provinces, right? We have radio programs running in these provinces in the local language, right? And we're explaining what's in the budget to them, and also explaining what are questions they can ask their representatives and their parliamentarians. So that's what we're doing.
And you use infographics as well?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yes,
Rashid?
Rashid?
Yes, I think...
Well, a lot of compliments, but I think the court is important, and the 2 courts that have been established, but then to get them sustainable, they have to be monitored, and reports should be given on them, on their work and their progress in terms of the cases and how they have upheld fair trial rights. So at the end of the day, we all win. So we want this sexual offense court to continue forever. We want a corruption court to continue forever, because we know these 2 things are really eating to the fabric of our nation. You know, sexual, gender-based violence on the rise, corruption on the increase. So how do we deal with this issue? One step is to have this court, but another much more important tool is to monitor them so that they can be effective to deliver their mandate. And we should not be seen as a witch hunting exercise, but as a complementarity initiative. We mean well, and we've said this to the Chief Justice and to the SEC. And so when we give our reports, we hope that they will be considered objectively, and they will look at the recommendations and harness upon them to make sure these 2 courts survive, you know, year in, year out.
When will you start the monitoring?
Yeah, so on the 1st of April, we're on the 1st of April. So this month we are doing a lot of training and recruiting and having all these TORs. On the 1st of April we are starting, hopefully.
Do you expect to deal with individuals on incidents surrounding, in an instance where someone feels aggrieved either with the process or they have an inkling or maybe evidence that there was some sort of tampering, as a monitor who, you know, those who are going to be working or interfacing with the judiciary, especially with those 2 courts, would understand the key role you're playing in monitoring, and probably may want to bring certain information to your knowledge. Do you expect to interface in that sort of level, and how would that sort of pan out?
Yes, so you are right, because that's why we are training them. They should not really interfere with certain things. It's not their business. Their business is to look at what is happening in the trial, the courts, the court monitoring framework. So what is happening outside the court is not their mandate. So all that is happening in the court, the parties, those who were present, how the proceeding went, who said what, how were the evidences taken down. So these are things we are reporting on a daily basis, and of course on a quarterly basis. So we are not supposed to go outside of the court precincts, all right? So that's has been clear to them. And we are also working on a TOR framework to have them understand the do's and don'ts. Because remember, it's a court proceeding. We have to be accurate. We also should not exceed our boundaries. Otherwise, they'll be held for contempt of court. So they are all going to be trained on court monitoring, the ethics to go along with the monitoring exercise. So it will be a good initiative. I'm sure I'm looking forward to the first publication. All right.
We'll definitely have you when that publication is out.
Yes.
Bola, quickly, this project you launched yesterday, what the timeline?
So the timeline is from January to October 2021. We've started some research work. We've started the Imanangu stories. We've started some radio programs as well. And yesterday was just like drawing people's attention to this thing is on ground, and we want you to be aware of what we're doing, so that when you start seeing the publications, you're seeing the research work, you understand, okay, this has been on for some time. So we started January and it's going to end October 2021.
And how can the public engage with your organization
if
they want to be a part of this engagement process and basically learn more about the budget?
Yes, we have a website which is Budget, and we also have a social media handles. We have the Twitter handle, Budget Sierra Leone, We have the Facebook page as well, Budget Sierra Leone. So yes, you can always, and we are always online to respond to your questions. And we can assure you that we are here to serve the people, and also here to make people understand that you can actually ask government questions. And as a citizen of Sierra Leone, you can get involved in the process, because that's the only way governance is completed.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Iyanoluwa Bolaruwa, Senior Officer for the Budget Foundation, and as well lawyer Rashid Dubuya, who is part of the CSO's pushing forward the monitoring process and team to monitor the just formed or composed courts. That's the Sexual Offences Court and that of the Anti-Corruption Court. We'll definitely be monitoring both processes. So this is the first of many more engagements to come. This is a Wake Up Sierra Leone.